Welcome back to Outperform the Storm. I'm Martin Sorger and I help professionals and founders train their nervous systems and cognition for optimal performance. I want to start by just saying I seem to be losing my voice, probably from shouting at my clients for too long. So do bear with me if it fades out. It's not my editor, it's me. So today's episode focuses on what is increasingly the most important skill you can possess to navigate the labor market storm that's here and will soon be turning into a hurricane. That skill is adaptability, and this episode is about why you need it and the right way to develop it. I'm going to dissect adaptability's 3 layers and provide you with a framework to determine your ability to adapt, and I'll cover how you build and install adaptability as an operating system. So why is adaptability the critical skill for the next few years? Firstly, so that you stay valuable and needed in the labor market. I'm going to spare you the dramatic national and global numbers for layoffs and freeze hires and the doomsday predictions. There's plenty of information out there. It seems to be growing by the day from credible sources. The reality is the storm is here and people are waking up to the implications. Things are clearly going to get a lot rougher before they get better, if they get better. But there are 2 recent headlines that you may have missed that blew me away. In January this year, Harvard Business Review published an article with a jaw-dropping title, "Companies are laying off workers because of AI's potential, not its performance." That's the title. Companies are laying off workers because of AI's potential, not its performance. Not because AI had proven itself to the companies, but because boards, investors, and executive teams are pricing in what AI will be able to do. They're restructuring the human workforce around a future capability. The future is restructuring the present. And then, more recently on February the 12th, just a few days ago, Mustafa Suleyman, CEO of Microsoft AI, told the Financial Times something that sent shockwaves through every professional community. He said, "Most, if not all, of the tasks that accountants, lawyers, and other professionals currently undertake will be fully automated within the next 12 to 18 months. Now, he's a smart guy on the inside, so he knows what's coming. But even before that happens, what he and others are saying changes investment decisions, changes hiring, changes promotion, changes how many people a company lays off. That's happening right now. So becoming adaptable is the single best way to protect yourself. But there is another less obvious reason for becoming adaptable. Studies and the experience of employees are demonstrating that the way companies are using AI means it doesn't reduce work, it intensifies it. Harvard Business Review, again, recently published research involving an 8-month study inside a tech company using AI, which found that people produced more, but they also worked longer. In other words, the time savings got absorbed by rising expectations, not because anyone mandated it, but because AI made more possible and the goalposts moved. And this is one of many studies pointing in the same direction. Now, in 2026, everyone seems to be talking about adaptability. The World Economic Forum ranked it one of the most important skills to have. It was up 17 percentage points since 2023, the largest jump of any non-technical skill. LinkedIn, McKinsey, they're all saying the same thing: adapt or fall behind. And many of you are already aware of the need to become adaptable. The typical advice includes you need to learn and unlearn. You need to embrace uncertainty, stay curious, be open, have a growth mindset. And that advice isn't wrong, it's just inadequate and insufficient. Because telling someone to adapt when their system is fried is like telling someone to get fit by running while their legs are broken. You can have the best attitude in the world, but if your nervous system is in chronic overdrive, if your sleep is disrupted, if your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain responsible for decision-making, learning, and cognitive flexibility, is degraded by sustained stress, then no amount of positive thinking will save you. You're not failing to adapt because you lack the right mindset. You're failing to adapt because your operating system is crashing or has crashed. So the question isn't whether you need to adapt, it's whether your operating system is capable of adaptation. And I didn't arrive at the idea of adaptability as an operating system from reading a few books. I've been forced to master adaptability more than once. I started my career as a barrister in 1990, a long time ago. High stakes work, high pressure, high consequence. And then at the peak of my career in 2004, I faced 2 life-threatening illnesses at the same time, and I was very close to death. It was the end of my legal career, and overnight I had to adapt. Later, I became a private equity-backed startup co-founder for 3 years. And as anyone will know, that's a much easier path to being a lawyer. Not. And then the 2008 crash killed that venture. Another forced adaptation. I'd always trained lawyers at the bar, so in 2009, I moved into coaching. Another rebuild. And then, 10 years later in 2019, our home was completely destroyed by fire. We awoke to find our bedroom ablaze. It nearly killed us. And the chemical exposure, the neurotoxins, they really affected both my nervous system and my cognition. So I've lived the thing that most people talk about as an abstract concept: unlearning, relearning, rebuilding. And what became obvious, brutally obvious, is this: that when your nervous system is wrecked, your cognition degrades and your adaptability evaporates. Not because you're weak, but because your system literally cannot run the adaptation process. So here's the adaptability framework. Most people make the mistake of thinking that adaptability is one thing. It's not. It has 3 layers, and the layers have an order, meaning they must come online in sequence. Skip a layer, and the ones above won't function properly. So let's start with layer 1, nervous system mastery. This is the foundation. It's your ability to regulate your physiological state under pressure, to shift from fight, flight, freeze into a state when your higher brain functions remain online. This isn't wellness. This is operational readiness. Research shows that even mild continuous stress reduces cognitive flexibility, and that chronic stress causes structural changes in the prefrontal cortex, literally shrinking the neural connections you need for learning and decision-making. Translated, what that means in plain English is if your nervous system has been running in the red for months, and for most professionals and founders it is right now, then your brain's hardwire for adaptation is physically degraded. Think about it this way. If you can't regulate your state, you can't think clearly. If you can't think clearly, you can't learn. And if you can't learn, you can't adapt. And if you can't adapt in the AI area, you are fragile and fried. This is layer 1. Without it, nothing above works properly. Layer 2, upgraded cognition. Once your nervous system is regulated, you can upgrade how you think. This layer is about cognitive performance under pressure, working memory, attention control, cognitive flexibility, the ability to learn new skills rapidly, the ability to make clean decisions with incomplete information, the ability to reframe threats as challenges, not as a platitude, but as a trained cognitive skill. This is where the neuroscience converges powerfully. Research shows that higher heart rate variability, otherwise known as HRV, which is a marker of nervous system regulation, correlates directly with better executive function, better working memory, better cognitive flexibility, better inhibitory control. Autonomic flexibility at baseline, in other words, how well regulated your nervous system is before you even start, predicts learning outcomes from cognitive training. In other words, your nervous system's baseline predicts how well you can learn. That's not mindset or attitude, that's biology. Layer 2 tools include self-talk strategies used by elite athletes and special forces operators, attentional focus techniques, cognitive reappraisal, which is a trained ability to reframe pressure as an opportunity, mental performance protocols for decision-making under pressure. But here's what really matters. Layer 2 depends on layer 1. You can't upgrade cognition on a dysregulated nervous system. Trying to learn new cognitive skills while being chronically stressed is like trying to install software on a computer that's overheating. The installation fails every time, and then you blame the software. Now, layer 3, strategic adaptation. This is where most advice starts. Career strategy, reskilling plans, business pivots, new positioning. They matter, obviously, but this is layer 3, not layer 1, and this is the key. Strategic adaptation requires clear thinking. Clear thinking requires upgraded cognition, and upgraded cognition requires a regulated nervous system. The sequence matters. Adaptability isn't a nice to have. It's the cost of remaining employable. But here's the paradox. Research consistently shows that stress impairs exactly the cognitive functions that people need most right now. Cognitive flexibility, the ability to switch strategies, reversal learning, the ability to unlearn old patterns and adopt new ones, working memory, the ability to hold multiple pieces of complex information while making decisions. I could go on. The very capability the AI era demands are the very first casualties that the AI era extracts. That's the trap. Everyone says adapt, but almost nobody asks, is your system capable of adaptation? So here's the diagnostic, something practical that you can take away. 3 questions to assess where your operating system is right now, and try to answer them honestly. Question 1, can you shift your state on demand? When the pressure hits, a difficult conversation, a high-stakes meeting, bad news, can you bring yourself from reactive to clear and calm within 60 seconds? Not suppress the stress, not push through, but actually shift your physiology. If you can't, layer 1 needs work. Question 2, can you learn something new under pressure? Not in ideal conditions, not on a quiet weekend, but right now, while carrying your current workload, while managing the uncertainty, while dealing with the noise, can you acquire a new skill and retain it? If you're struggling, if your reading is shallow, your focus fragmented, your attention poor, then layer 2 needs work. And lastly, question 3, can you make a strategic career decision with confidence? Not a reactive one driven by fear, but a clear-headed assessment of where you are, where the environment is moving, and what your next best move is. If you're frozen, if you know you should be making changes but you can't pull the trigger, the issue isn't necessarily that you lack a strategy. It may be that layers 1 and layers 2 aren't supporting layer 3. Most people will recognize themselves in at least one of these categories, many in all 3. And the response to that recognition should not be try harder. It should be fix the foundation. So let me draw these threads together. The AI-driven disruption of work is not approaching. It is here. It's compressing roles, eliminating positions, and rewriting the rules of what makes somebody valuable. Everyone is telling you to adapt, but almost nobody is asking whether your system is capable of adaptation. Adaptability is not simply a mindset, it's an operating system with 3 layers. Layer 1, nervous system mastery, which is the foundation. Layer 2, upgraded cognition, which is the engine. And layer 3, strategic adaptation, which is the output. The sequence matters. Right now, professionals and founders are trying to run layer 3. They're trying to reskill, pivot, and strategize on a nervous system that's been in chronic overdrive for months, if not years. And that's why the burnout numbers keep climbing alongside the adaptability advice. It's not that people aren't trying, it's that they're trying to install new software on crashed hardware. Fix the hardware first, then upgrade the processing, then run the strategy. That's the adaptability operating system. In the episodes ahead, we're going to go deep into each layer, specific protocols for nervous system mastery, specific techniques for upgrading cognition under pressure, and the strategic frameworks that make adaptation sustainable, not just survivable. Thanks for joining me, and please share this episode with somebody you know would benefit. I'm Martin Sorju, helping you outperform the storm.